Every painful relationship reaches a moment of quiet recognition, not a dramatic argument, not a final betrayal, just a subtle inner shift you don't want to name. You notice how your body reacts before your mind catches up. The slight tension when their name appears on your phone, the heaviness before gatherings that used to feel natural, the relief you feel when the interaction is over, and the guilt that follows for feeling relieved at all. Nothing obvious is wrong on the surface. There is history, shared time, familiar roles, in some cases blood, in others decades of loyalty. And yet something inside you has grown quieter around them, more guarded, not because you've become cold, but because a part of you has learned to brace itself. This is not about blaming anyone. It's not about declaring others bad or yourself superior. It's about noticing when a relationship no longer aligns with who you are becoming, and having the discipline to sit with that truth without panic. Stoic philosophy never demanded endless tolerance. It asked for clarity, for dignity, for the protection of the inner world. What follows are 8 signs, not accusations, not instructions, simply patterns, experienced inwardly, that often appear when distance becomes necessary, even with those we once held closest. Read them slowly. Let them land where they belong. 1. You leave interactions feeling smaller than when you arrived. This erosion is rarely loud. It doesn't arrive as outright hostility or clear rejection. There are no obvious confrontations, no dramatic moments you can point to. It shows up quietly, almost politely, in tone that cools instead of warms, in timing that interrupts rather than listens, in subtle dismissals that pass quickly enough to be questioned later. You share something meaningful, something that took courage to express, and it lands without care, not attacked, not rejected outright, just quietly reduced. A goal is met with skepticism instead of curiosity. An idea is met with correction instead of respect. A feeling is met with logic instead of presence. Nothing extreme enough to confront. Nothing obvious enough to explain to someone else. If you tried, the words would sound thin, exaggerated, incomplete. So you don't explain it, you absorb it. But afterward you feel dimmed, not shattered, not devastated, just subtly smaller, less certain, less expansive, as if some part of your inner authority was quietly questioned, and you agreed without noticing. You leave the interaction replaying moments in your mind, not to accuse, but to understand. You wonder if you misunderstood, if you were too sensitive, if you expected too much. Over time, you begin to anticipate this reaction before it happens. Your body learns first. Your words follow. You edit yourself in advance. You soften your enthusiasm. You shorten your explanations. You choose safer words, smaller dreams, fewer expressions of excitement. Not because you lack confidence, not because you doubt your worth, but because you've learned what happens when you don't protect it. You learn where not to place your joy, where not to place your curiosity, where not to place the parts of yourself that are still growing. Many people tolerate this dynamic because it's subtle, because there is no single incident that justifies pulling away, because they tell themselves they're being sensitive, because familiarity blurs the line between honesty and erosion. Stoic thinkers understood this danger well. They knew that dignity is not something granted by others. It is something preserved through discernment. Not every disagreement diminishes you. Not every correction is harmful. But when a relationship consistently leaves you less grounded in yourself, the issue is no longer disagreement. It is misalignment. And misalignment, when ignored, slowly reshapes who you allow yourself to be. Distance in this case is not punishment. It is not rejection. It is the quiet decision to stop, placing yourself where your sense of self is, repeatedly reduced. It is choosing environments where your presence does not require self-minimization, where your voice does not need to be filtered to remain acceptable, where your inner authority is allowed to exist without apology. 2. Responsibility never settles where it belongs. Some relationships feel confusing not because conflict exists, but because clarity never does. The conversations circle endlessly, yet nothing ever truly resolves. Every tension becomes a misunderstanding. Every hurt becomes an overreaction. Every concern is somehow misremembered, reframed, or redirected. You try to be precise. You choose your words carefully. You explain context. You clarify intention, and still the outcome is the same. You begin conversations, seeking resolution, and leave them carrying more weight than before. Not because the issue grew, but because responsibility shifted quietly, persistently, onto you. You replay conversations afterward. You examine your tone instead of their behavior. You question your delivery instead of their choices. Over time, you start apologizing to restore peace. Not because you believe you were wrong, but because standing in uncertainty feels heavier than surrendering clarity. You learn that taking responsibility, even when it isn't yours, keeps the relationship calm. And calm starts to feel like success. This pattern drains slowly. It doesn't overwhelm you all at once. It wears you down through repetition. It teaches you to doubt your perceptions, to re-examine your reactions instead of their actions, to question your intentions instead of their accountability. You begin carrying emotional weight that was never assigned to you, but somehow became yours. People tolerate this dynamic because they value harmony, because they fear escalation, because they've learned that clarity often comes with emotional cost. They tell themselves that letting it go is maturity, that holding others accountable is harsh, that peace is worth the compromise. Stoicism never encouraged endless accommodation. It emphasized integrity, alignment between reality and response. Relationship without shared responsibility becomes a place where truth dissolves, where accountability evaporates, where peace is purchased through self-erasure. You become the container for what others refuse to hold, and eventually that container cracks. Choosing distance here is not avoidance. It is discernment. It is the refusal to carry what does not belong to you. It is the decision to stop negotiating reality in order to keep connection. 3. Connection appears only when you are needed. There is a particular emptiness that comes from being valued, primarily for your availability, from realizing that your presence matters most when it serves a purpose. The pattern is recognizable. Contact intensifies during their uncertainty. Messages arrive when they are overwhelmed, confused, or unsettled. Your presence becomes essential during their difficulty. You are sought for reassurance, for perspective, for steadiness. And when stability returns, so does absence. The warmth fades. The attentiveness recedes. The connection loosens until the next moment of need. You are not sought for shared presence, not for mutual reflection, not for simple companionship, only for support, insight, relief. You listen, you reassure, you respond thoughtfully, you give generously, not because you are asked, but because it feels natural to you. And when you reach outward yourself, the space feels different, less responsive, less attentive, as though your need disrupts a dynamic built around theirs. There is no hostility, no clear rejection, just absence. Many people remain in this dynamic because being needed feels meaningful, because usefulness can masquerade as connection, because contribution feels like purpose. Saying yes feels easier than naming imbalance, easier than acknowledging that reciprocity is missing, easier than admitting that care has conditions. Stoic philosophy reminds us that true bonds are rooted in mutual regard, not convenience, in shared steadiness, not one-sided extraction. When a relationship consistently draws from your reserves without contributing to your grounding, it becomes unsustainable, not immediately, but inevitably. You begin to feel depleted rather than connected, available rather than seen, relied upon rather than valued. Distance here is not withdrawal, it is recalibration, a quiet recognition that your inner resources are not endless, that your energy is not an obligation, and that presence, to remain meaningful, must be mutual. 4. Your boundaries are acknowledged in words, but dismissed in practice. You express limits calmly, not dramatically, not defensively. You choose clarity over confrontation. You explain what you can accept, what you cannot. And yet the pattern repeats. They are crossed again, softened, reinterpreted, brushed aside, often disguised as humor, as forgetfulness, as reassurance that you are overthinking. Explanations arrive quickly. Apologies sound sincere, but behavior remains unchanged. Your discomfort becomes something to manage, rather than something to respect. You begin explaining more carefully, choosing words with precision, justifying longer, adding context, hoping clarity will eventually translate into consideration. But boundaries do not fail because they are unclear. They fail because they are inconvenient. Stoic wisdom teaches that restraint is revealed through action, not agreement. Anyone can nod, anyone can affirm understanding. Few are willing to alter their habits. When your limits are repeatedly treated as flexible while theirs remain firm, imbalance becomes the foundation of the relationship. Not conflict, not hostility, but quiet asymmetry. Many people stay because enforcing boundaries feels confrontational, because they fear being labeled difficult, because they confuse endurance with virtue. But self-respect does not require aggression. It requires consistency, a willingness to follow through without explanation. Distance in this case is not a reaction. It is the natural consequence of repeated disregard. 5. Your growth creates discomfort rather than support. There is a quiet grief in realizing that your progress unsettles someone close to you, not because they oppose you openly, but because they cannot celebrate you freely. The response is rarely direct. It appears as deflection, as comparison, as subtle redirection. Your achievements are acknowledged briefly, then overshadowed. Your aspirations are met with concern rather than encouragement. Your confidence is received with silence rather than celebration. Advice replaces support. Caution replaces excitement. Their discomfort becomes the undertone of every conversation about your future. This reaction is not always conscious, but it is revealing. People tolerate this dynamic because they minimize their own expansion. They speak less about what matters. They adjust their ambition to maintain harmony. They protect others from discomfort by limiting themselves. Stoic philosophy does not ask us to dim our development for the sake of familiarity. It encourages alignment with virtue, even when it disrupts existing dynamics. Growth changes the balance. It exposes insecurities. It rearranges roles that once felt stable. When your growth requires someone else to shrink, the relationship has reached a natural limit, not a failure, a threshold. Distance here is not betrayal. It is the decision to continue becoming who you are without apology. 6. You monitor yourself to maintain emotional safety. You think before speaking, not out of thoughtfulness but caution. You adjust your tone, not to communicate clearly, but to avoid reaction. You measure honesty. You soften truth. You calculate timing. Disagreement feels risky. Honesty feels expensive. Your nervous system stays alert in their presence. Scanning, anticipating, preparing. You replay conversations in advance. You rehearse exits. You manage outcomes before they occur. This is not sensitivity. It is adaptation. Many people normalize this because they believe relationships require sacrifice, because they mistake tension for intimacy, because they fear the uncertainty that comes with space. Stoic philosophy teaches that inner freedom is essential. When peace is contingent on silence, something fundamental is compromised. Connection should not require vigilance. Presence should not feel like performance. Distance here is not abandonment. It is the restoration of composure. A return to environments where your presence does not require self-surveillance. 7. Your time and priorities are treated as secondary. Plans shift without notice. Requests assume availability. Interruptions are expected accommodations. Your schedule becomes adjustable. Your commitments become optional. Your time becomes shared without consent. You begin reshaping your life around theirs. Not because you choose to, but because resistance feels disruptive. Because pushing back seems to create more friction than compliance. Over time, your commitments shrink. Your routines bend. Your personal structure erodes. What once grounded you becomes negotiable. What once mattered becomes postponed. What once had rhythm begins to feel scattered. You find yourself waiting, adjusting, reorganizing your days around shifting expectations that were never discussed. People tolerate this because they value flexibility, because they fear appearing uncooperative, Because they underestimate the cost of repeated concession. Stoic thinkers were clear about time. It is the one possession never returned. It cannot be replenished, recovered, or reclaimed later. When someone consistently treats your time as expendable, they reveal their valuation, not through words, but behavior. Priority is not declared. It is demonstrated. Distance here is not coldness. It is the reclamation of your life's rhythm, a return to days shaped by intention rather than interruption. 8. Your inner world feels calmer with space. This is often the most difficult truth to accept because it feels disloyal. Nothing dramatic changed. Nothing was said. Nothing ended abruptly. And yet your body responds to absence with ease. Your thoughts settle. Your breath deepens. You stop rehearsing conversations. You stop recovering afterward. You stop questioning yourself. Your energy returns to neutral. Your attention comes back online. Your inner dialogue softens. Peace returns quietly, without explanation, without justification. Stoic philosophy teaches that harmony is not theoretical. It is experienced. When distance restores clarity, that clarity is not accidental. It is information. People remain in draining relationships out of obligation to history, to roles, to expectations formed long ago. But responsibility to the past does not outweigh responsibility to the present mind. Distance here is not rejection, it is discernment. And discernment is a form of respect. All 8 signs point to the same understanding. Relationships are not measured by longevity alone. They are not validated by shared history. They are not redeemed by effort without balance. They are measured by whether they allow you to remain aligned with yourself, by whether your presence feels whole rather than reduced, by whether your inner posture stays upright over time. Protecting your inner world is not selfish. It is disciplined. It is an act of stewardship over the one space you fully inhabit. Stoicism never demanded that you endure what quietly erodes your character. It never praised silent self-betrayal. It asked that you guard the mind with care, because from it everything else follows. Thought shapes action. Action shapes habit. Habit shapes destiny. Choosing distance does not make you cruel. It makes you honest. Honest about limits. Honest about capacity. Honest about what can no longer be carried without cost. Distance is not punishment. It is protection. Protection of clarity. Protection of equilibrium. And peace, quiet, steady, undramatic peace, is the evidence. Not excitement. Not relief mixed with guilt. But calm that does not need explanation. If this reflection stirred something in you, allow yourself time with it. There is no urgency. No requirement to act, no demand for resolution. You may choose to sit with these thoughts, to revisit them later, to notice what they illuminate in your own life. You may share them quietly, or leave a few words below, simply to acknowledge what you recognized. Sometimes naming awareness is enough to let it take root. If this perspective resonated with you, consider liking the video, not as an obligation, but as a small signal that clarity matters. And if you value reflections grounded in stoic calm rather than noise, you may choose to subscribe, so these moments of stillness find you again when you need them. Clarity grows when it is honored.